It's your fault that I'm working.
Blame me. I think the most important thing is to find something that you're truly passionate about.
Don't compare with anyone. Just be yourself, do your thing, and work hard. That's it.
Welcome to StaffBuffalo's Pain Points podcast.
Welcome to the Pain Point podcast. I'm here today with a very special person for me and for my college career. His name is Lamark Shaw, and he's the Director of Career Services at Daemen University. So thank you for coming, Lamark, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure on my end. And we have made a full circle from student and now your working profession. So I really appreciate you selecting me to have this conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, this is really funny story because I was a Daemen student for 5 years, and Mr. Shaw was the person who helped me to apply to this job, and I'm here now interviewing here today. He's my guest, so I'm really excited to have a conversation with him. So first of all, Lamark, you've had such an incredible career from retail operations to advising to teaching. So please share with us how you started and what brought you to the point where you are right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that's a great question. And my career path is quite interesting. My undergrad, I thought I wanted to go into graphic design. And so I finished my undergrad in graphic design. I have my bachelor's in graphic design, but I ended up going in a whole different direction. I managed a company out of college. I started managing a retail store, and I was there for quite some time, but it became a little, I don't want to say boring, but it wasn't enough. I'll say it that way. So I wanted to find something that was more exciting, more engaging, or just different. So I started to network and connect with other people and friends and so on and so forth, just to figure out, so what does the next career path looks like for me? And I stumbled on teaching, and I started teaching at another institution here in Buffalo, and I taught there for about 6 years. And then, of course, I went back to school after my bachelor's, and then I started teaching at another college here in Buffalo. Then I moved on from there, but it was all networking. I started teaching at Daemen University, and it was all hilarious. It was all just talking to people, finding opportunities. Hey, you know of any other schools that are looking for adjunct professors? So I went in that direction, started teaching. I really enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it. I have to say that I still enjoy it. And another thing that happened after that, being here at Daemen University, another position opened. It was just for a career advisor. And so I started working at Daemen here part-time as a career advisor and teaching as well.
At the same time?
Yeah, at the same time. And to believe it or not, I still, after I moved from leading the company, like I mentioned before, I hope this is not too confusing, but I mentioned before that I manage a small retail, I'm saying small, but it's not all that small, but it's a retail operation. So from there, I started teaching. I started working in career services, and then I just kept achieving and striving for more. And I ended up being the assistant director, associate director, then director of career services at Daemen University in career services. So it was sort of not a straight line for me. It was sort of starting here, moving in this area, moving in that area. But it was interesting because I think in many ways, the things that I've done are truly connected because it's all dealing with people. It's all talking, communication skills, and it's all those transferable competencies.
Transferable skills.
But it's a fun journey because I think that everything that I've done, I was passionate about. I'll say it that way. I think that although they may be different, like retail management is totally different from higher ed, but I was passionate about each one of those things, which made everything just so unique and so interesting to me. So here I am now, fast forward quite a few years, and I'm in the point where I'm the director of career services here, and I do consulting for the retail company that I manage. I still go in and help out, and I still organize a few things for them. And so it's more of a consulting role that I play now for the retail operation. But on campus here, I serve full-time as the Director of Career Services, and also I'm still an adjunct professor here at Daemen University. So I hope all of that makes sense. I know it was a lot. and in my mind, it's still, I have to really think about it, like, what am I doing again?
Yeah, I actually did some, I mean, I knew your whole career, but I did some more research about you and found out that you are also involved with a fashion company. I found out that you were a sales manager there, and I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. It was a little bit surprising, but of course positive. And something that you mentioned about passion is actually really important. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter what you do. If you do it with passion, you will always be successful, or at least you will be happy with yourself because you gave your 100% to whatever you do. But as a career advisor for so many years, can you share what you value the most about mentoring students and future professionals?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question, because I honestly believe that I value the things like those relationships, those meetings with students. I remember, Hilario, even sitting down with you, talking with you about your professional documents, your resume, and so on and so forth.
My resume was a real mess.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I would say that I value those moments because I understand that if I do my job well, that it will have a positive impact on you. So I take those moments very seriously. But I often think about like mentorship and what does that mean? Because I try not to like give all the answers. I never want to be the one that write your resume.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you that, but I want to guide you so that you can
with advices.
Your whole resume. Absolutely, because now you understand the process, so you can go out and do other things related to what we just worked on, if that makes sense. So yeah, I meet with students constantly, and we talk about several different things. It's not just about resumes and cover letters, because we spend a great deal of time also, Hilario, just talking about future. Like, what does your career path look like? What does your skills and your preferences, your abilities, how does that align with industries that you are interested in? Because it has to be aligned, because if it's not, then the student pretty much, I would probably say that they won't be as passionate about things that their skill sets and their preferences and abilities and education is not aligned with. And I guess anything is possible, but I think you really need to think about that. What do I really want to do? And how does my skill sets and attributes align with that industry? So mentorship is huge, and we take that seriously here in career services. And I think one of the things that we try to do when we consider mentorship and as we work with our students is to get them to see the skills or the abilities that they have within themselves. And then how does that align with what they want to do? So it's trying to bridge this gap between the way they see themselves, their talents, their abilities,
what they do best.
Right. And then how does that align with the industry that they are considering? Because I've had quite a few conversations with students, Valerio, and then I think sometimes we realize that maybe this is not the career path for that student. And of course, they make that decision and that determination. But sometimes we stumble onto those types of conversations, which are very interesting. I promise you, there's a number of students that are in their professions or in their majors because of pressure from like parents. Pressure.
I totally agree with that.
People would say, hey, Hilario, you would make a great
lawyer,
designer, or a lawyer, a doctor. But meanwhile, I mean, maybe you can do those things, but maybe they're not aligned with your passions or with your abilities or preferences. So we have those types of conversations. And I think as we mentor students through this whole process, I think in the back of our minds, or I'll speak for me, in the back of my mind, I'm always asking, how can I guide instead of lead? because I don't want to
Yeah.
lead. I honestly just want to guide you. Ask the right questions, question some of your answers to hopefully between the two of us, we can kind of find your path by just having those types of conversations.
At the end of the day, it's kind of hard because you have to put in a balance, work-life balance, then passion, and then money. I see so many people. I have friends who they might make a lot of money, but I don't think they are happy with what they are doing. And I think at the end of the day, you have to keep a balance. My opinion, money is not that important, and you have to be happy every day that you have to go to work. Of course, it's work, and nobody wants to work for free. But if you work with passion and you work on something that you actually believe, I think it goes way easier.
Wow, well said, well said. And I can give you an example of that, Hilaria. My oldest daughter, she's a lawyer. She's been practicing for 3 years now, and she is not happy with her profession. In fact, she's trying to figure out a way of getting out. And she's experimenting and started a business. Like she's doing some other things, but that's the example of exactly of what you just said. Finding something that you're passionate about, finding something that you love to do is so important because you have to keep in mind, you're going to do this 8 hours or more a day, right? So spending that much time doing something, you truly want to be passionate about what you're doing. Money is important. Don't misunderstand me, please. But I can strongly tell you that is not the most important thing. I think the most important thing is to find something that you're truly passionate about. And I know people talk about, hey, find a job you like and you'll never work a day in your life. I get it. That's important. It's important to make money. And it's more important to make sure you're passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah. And also we'll talk about Daemen later, but if I can think of a word that have been repeated over my college career, has been actually two of them: entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur. As an international student, being from Spain, where everyone just want to get right out of school, work for a public company, get their money and work from 9 to 5. That's it. I think I can talk about Daemen because it was my school. I don't know how other schools operate, but I think it's an American thing that you guys promote and push students to grab an idea, go for it, and have passion. And they say in Spain that America is the country of the dreams, where the dreams come true. And that's a part of it. The education that you guys develop there, how you guys push students to develop their own company, grab their idea. If you want to be a hairdresser, go and be a hairdresser. And that's important. Not everyone needs to have a major and, as you mentioned, be a lawyer or a public accountant or whatever. They can be a mechanic, they can be a hairdresser, and they can be happier than other people who have like better jobs.
Absolutely. And, we do talk with our students about setting goals. And in our minds, a goal is they should be like dreams, like something that you truly want to do. So your goal needs to be connected with something that you're passionate about. But then at the same time, goals are dreams with deadlines and a plan. So it's all about like, how can you achieve this success by setting this clear action plan of things of what you're going to do. So as we go through that mentor conversation, that mentorship, as we mentor students and as we go through these conversations, that's what we do, Lario. Like we say to the students, all right, so you made a decision. This is what you want to do. This is what you believe that you want to do. Now let's start to set some goals. Let's set some deadlines to these goals. Let's come up with a plan. Yeah. I think the strategy needs to be there as well, because it's so easy for a person to say, oh, I want to be a lawyer. I'll just say it that way, right? I'll just use that as an example. But now, so what's the action plan of achieving that? In career services, that's exactly what we do. We help the students to create that action plan. And I think success comes when you start to set clear goals and taking small tasks. Like, all right, if you want to be a lawyer, what is your first step? Well, obviously you have to take the SAT. So before you even do that, what do you want to do? You want to take courses to prep yourself for the SAT exams and So it's about that. So our mentorship and what we do here is, I think it's multi-layered because we start with the conversation, it's very foundational, and then we start to build from there. We don't just say, all right, you came up with this decision, Hilario. You want to be a lawyer. My job here is done. Good luck. Have a great life.
Yeah.
No, we get more involved because now it's time to start to set deadlines and an action plan, clear goals. How can we break this into smaller steps? And that's going to lead you towards achieving your goal.
Everyone needs to have their own path, and something that my parents always told me when I was younger is don't compare with anyone. Just be yourself, do your thing, and just work hard. That's it.
I think that's the best advice. If I can chime in just for a second, do your own thing. I have 4 kids, Hilario, so I never.
Wow.
I know, right? But my wife and I, we've never put pressure on our kids to be something that they're not. And our kids are doing incredibly well. I have no complaints. But we let them make their decisions, and we allow them, obviously, to choose their career paths. And they're all, making decisions. Some of them appreciate their decisions, and then some of them don't appreciate them as much, and then they have to make other decisions. But they live with it. They live with whatever decisions that they have to make. So,
now that you mentioned about your family and your kids, how do you manage the work-life balance?
What a great question. That is probably my biggest struggle. One of the things that I love to do is achieve. So I find myself doing so many different things. Like I mentioned, I'm still in a minimum way, I'm still connected to the store. I still consult. I go in and I help out on certain days, and I still solve problems for them. In fact, there was an IT issue that just happened I had to deal with, and I still even create their schedules. And so I'm still connected to the store. I'm involved in a very big way here at Daemen University. I'm involved in the community. I'm the board chair for Truway Community Center. So, and there's other things, but I'm sharing that with you just to make a point. I honestly believe that I can probably do a better job at creating this work-life balance. But one of the things that I have to share is that, and I think a lot of people get confused about this when you have that conversation about work-life balance. What if you are truly passionate about the work you're doing? Well, then it doesn't seem to be work anymore. I enjoy teaching. So to call it work, I don't know. It doesn't feel like work to me.
Like work.
So even the work that I do for Truway Community Center, I love it. I mean, we're helping kids. We have a reading program, by the way. But that doesn't feel like work. When I'm sitting here with students like yourself, Hilario, and when I'm helping them with resumes it doesn't feel like I'm working. So I get it. I still have a family, and I make sure that I block out time to spend with my wife. We make sure that every week we're doing things together. And once I get home in the evening, I shut down and I'm focusing on relationships and things like that.
Yeah.
So I know that there's always room for improvement. So when you think about work-life balance, I know that is something that I truly need to make sure that I don't allow this to get out of hand, because I enjoy the things that I do that most people call work. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, for me, something that also distinguishes you is that when someone comes into your office, you don't understand me as a student. You treat them as an equal to you. Like, it's anyone can see that you actually enjoy what you do, and that's very valuable. I totally agree. And I also wanted to circle back to the topic we were talking about before, because StaffBuffalo and HRBuffalo, we work with a lot of candidates, not only every year, but every week and every day. And as a career advisor, I want to know your opinion of the challenges that students face when they enter the workforce?
Well, I think I'll talk to you from the perspective of managing the retail store and some of the challenges that I see when we hire someone and when we actually place them in their positions. So I think the biggest challenge is just solving, and I don't know how to categorize all of this, so I'll just kind of talk and maybe you can guide me if you believe that you want me to chat about it from a different perspective. But one of the challenges that I have when I hired for the store is that a lot of the employees that would come in, they just didn't know how to do the soft skills. Maybe I can just say it that way. The basic soft skills, those transferable competencies that you just truly need to have to work together. And I'll talk about it by mentioning or giving you an example. One of the things that I deal with a lot is just handling conflicts and the amount of time that I spend resolving conflicts with our employees. Now I get it. It's a sales environment. So with commission, when you start to add things like that, Hilario, people are going to be competitive. So, but still, even in that environment, how do you solve conflicts? Like, how do you mitigate like all these different disagreements? And so your question is what are some of the concerns for people that are entering the job fields? I mean, on my end of it, from a manager's end of it, my biggest concern is how can I get folks that are truly, that know how to manage some of these conflicts? There's one report that discussed, it actually talked about this article, talked about how most managers spend approximately 21% of their time dealing with nothing but conflicts. I mean, if you do the math on that, that's almost one day a week. And I get it, it can be less with some companies and more with others. It's a generalization. Yeah. But at the same time, we spend a lot of our time just dealing with conflicts. So if I can minimize that, if I can find employees that can solve some of these types of conflicts before management has to get involved, if I can find those employees, that would give me more time to work on some positive things rather than spending a great deal of my time dealing with things that are more or less on the negative side. So I think that's a challenge for when I look at it from the manager's perspective. Like from the employee perspective, I think there's a lot of challenges from technology taking jobs and AI getting in all the things that it's sort of minimizing on their end. So I think that students that are graduating college and going into the work field, I think that they really need to think about, like, how can I find positions that are not as reliant on AI or technology, or what are the industries that are still open? There's a lot of industries. Now I'm sort of just chatting along here, so you can stop me at any time, Hilario.
No, that's super interesting.
But I think that I'm thinking about our animation students just as an example, but you can find examples in just about every major. But even with our animation students, I think one of the things that they're probably concerned about is that AI can do some of the coding work. I mean, this is just an example. So I wonder what those industries are going to look like 5 years from today. So I think that there's concerns on both sides. I think that students graduating college, going into the work field, they certainly have the things that they need to be concerned with, and how can they even start to position themselves so that they're not going in a direction that maybe in 5 or 10 years, Hilario, that maybe AI can take over some of these positions. And then on the manager side, just we're looking for these skill sets. And I just use conflict management just as one example, but there's other things as well that we certainly look for.
Yeah, and you actually mentioned one of the topics I wanted to talk about, conflict resolution. I wanted to talk about Daemen, of course, and about how Daemen as an institution, and you also guys as career advisor, how do you help students to enter the workforce or to prepare for the workforce? Because I know that every year, for example, you organize a couple of networking events, you organize professionalism workshops, I think how they are called. And in general, how do you guys, as a department, help them?
Absolutely, that's a great question, and that's the probably the number one thing that's in the that's in the front of our thoughts when we think about our students and how we can align them with jobs after college. So there's a couple things that we do. So we have what we call ROC, R-O-C, and it's the acronym that stands for Recruiters on Campus. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays throughout the semester, we bring in 4 to 5, in fact, sometimes even 6 companies at a time, just to table in our lobby and to talk about their opportunities. So we send an email out to our students, hey, this company is going to be here on this day. If you're interested, stop by the lobby and have a conversation, bring your resume. So
that's how I met StaffBuffalo.
Oh, really? Oh,
that's how I met them. Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that. So this is a great example of how we can connect students with opportunities. And another way is that we have our expo. So in every spring, and we strategically placed this expo in the spring because we know that students will be graduating, and
it's the best time.
If there's the time that is just so perfect. So we bring 50 plus employers in our social room upstairs, a large space that we have our tabling events for our expo. So this is the Career and Internship Expo. And this is a great opportunity for our students to network with multiple companies and talk about their majors and their skills and what they are looking for. So that's another way, and it's very successful. We typically would have hundreds, quite a few, I'll just say it that way, quite a few students stopping by to talk with employers. So it's very successful. We always look forward to it. It's a lot of work, I have to be honest with you. But that's another way that we help our students, and that's another way that we connect our students to employers. Then there are smaller events, like we have Meet the Accounting Professionals events. We bring in 7 to 8 accounting firms, and this is very much so targeting our accounting majors, but we do it in other areas as well. But I'm just sharing this with you as an example. And the success story of this is just incredible. But anyway, so we bring the accounting firms in, we invite the accounting students, and the professors support this event, the accounting professors. And we have a panel discussion. After that, we break out into a networking event. After that event, at least 4 to 5 of our students are finding some sort of connections. For instance, we'll have like 3 students that are connected in an internship from that accounting event. And then we'll have a couple of our students receive job offers. And we track all of this information, so we know about the success rate of this. But it's another thing. It's just another thing that we do to connect our students with opportunities. That's our job. I think that outside of all the things that we do with resumes and cover letters, the most important thing in my mind, Hilario, is connecting our students with opportunities. Now, we can't hold their hands. Like, we can't go to the interview, although I would love to. No, I'm joking on that part. But we don't hold their hands and take them to the interview, but certainly we bring opportunities to them. So,
yeah, I think, and I tell you this as a former student at Daemen, for me, making the decision and studying at Daemen was one of the best decisions of my life. Probably I wouldn't be here today if I didn't take that call from the soccer coach. Hello, Coach Swan, by the way, if you're hearing this. And that's something that actually sets Daemen apart from other institutions. I don't think that's something you pay for as a student. I learned what the word community means at Daemen. That word, of course, the word exists in Spanish, but I learned the meaning of the word at Daemen, and that's something I will have for me for the rest of my life. And that's something I'm very thankful of. And to be honest, I only have good words, positive words for Daemen, because it has impacted my life and myself as a person in a very positive way. So that's thanks to all of you who are a part of the institution.
thank
Looking
you.
back, looking back your career, and as we already talked about, you had a long career. What I know this is kind of a hard question. What is the moment you are most proud of?
Okay, I
I
would
know
like.
this is a hard question. I know it.
No, I'm just trying to think like what perspective that I want to answer this from, because I can actually answer that question from a few different perspectives. So one of the things that, and if it's okay with you, I would like to submit two answers to that question, if that's okay. I'll try to make them short. So one thing that I'm truly proud of is that I remember when I took over as manager of United Men's. It's the clothing store, right? So one of the things that I always wanted to do is to grow sales to a point where, the company was like doubling what they were used to doing, so to speak. And when I started, the company was doing really well, but I was able to take it to a multi-million-dollar company, and
Wow.
I was very, very happy about that. And I'm not saying that I was happy because of all the bonuses, although that was kind of nice, the bonuses that I was
It always
receiving
helps. It
as a
always helps.
result of doing that. But it was nice to see that coming up with an action plan, implementing a strategy, and watching that play out. That was very interesting, just seeing that whole process. And I think that was a very proud moment for me. And yeah, I think about that a lot. So that was one answer. So if I were to think about Daemen, if we were to switch the lens and kind of look at proud moments at Daemen, I can share with you many illustrations, but I'll talk about this just in a general way. When a student comes back to me, like yourself, Hilario, and say, hey, you had an impact on my life. For me, that's compensation.
Yeah.
That's intrinsic compensation. That's like pay. That's money for me because it makes me feel like, wow, something that I did had an impact on someone else's life. You know what I mean? So,
I know you
so
mean it. Yeah.
I mean, that just means so much to me. And it makes me proud to know you, Hilario, because I can see how you're starting to take on this life, this career, right? And you're moving in a whole different direction from being a student to being this professional.
Yeah.
That's a proud moment for me. And I get many examples in students sending emails over saying, thank you so much, your help. For your help. I had this job position, and those are proud moments. We call them success stories here, and we actually keep a list of these. We have a document because it's important to us when we hear that, when students come back and say, you had an impact on my life. When we hear things like that, those are proud moments for us. And so from two different perspectives, those are the things that I'm most proud of.
Yeah. You actually responded to my next question just right now, because I was going to ask, with such a long journey, sometimes because I just enter the workforce, I'm 24 years old, I try to take advice from my dad, maybe from my aunt, from my uncle, from professionals like you that have been in the business for years. And I always try to think, wow, how are these people still motivated? Like, what keeps you motivated? But as you mentioned, sometimes is, yeah, you are a career advisor. Former students come back to you and say, hey, you actually made an impact in my career. And that must be, I can't imagine how rewarding that must be, but I can think of it a little bit.
That's very rewarding because it's exponential. Not only will it help that student in their career path and their growth and so on and so forth, but think about this, Hilario. It would even impact their kids, right? I mean, if this person found their passion, found their career path through your support or your help in some sort of way, it will have a positive impact on their family, on their relationship. Now you can support your family, and it goes on and on. And when you really start to dive into it and start to really think about the impact that it has, you'll realize that it's much broader than you may
Yeah.
imagine from the original.
I wanted to ask you before we finish this episode and this conversation. We cover a lot of ground, so it's been wonderful having you. What advice would you give to a student who is, let's say, a sophomore and has doubts about their career? They are kind of lost. They don't know if their major is actually what they want to do in the future. What type of advice would you give to these students?
I think the best advice that I can even start to give is not to panic, because I think most of our students believe that they have to have an exact plan. Like, I want to be X, Y, Z. But I think if you talk to multiple people and as you interview people, you'll see that their career paths were not a straight line. It's not always, I want to be a lawyer, and sometimes you'll find yourself doing one thing and move to another, and then you'll kind of find your way by experimenting certain things. So the best advice that I can give is not to give up, and to be patient with the whole process. So you do need a plan, though. You need to start to do something. You need to move in a direction. So internships or shadowing, asking questions, networking, talking with people, I think that is probably the best advice that I can give anyone. Now, of course, if you know exactly what you want to do, like if you are a PA student and you know you want to go in that direction, I'm not saying that, hey, you need to explore other things. I mean, if that's what you truly want to do, then you need to move in that direction. But if you don't have that answer and you're exploring and you're trying to figure out your career path, the best advice I can give you: be flexible, be patient, and then start to ask a lot of questions. Start to put yourself out there as much as possible. Informational networking events, talking to people about their positions and about their jobs, and how do you like this, how do you like that. So it's all experimental. In my opinion, I think being comfortable with that process of learning you and learning how you align with industry, I think that makes sense. I think that's the best advice that I can give a person. I'm thinking about myself, Hilario, as I went through my career path, and that's the advice that I wish someone would have given me, because I was quite frustrated. I thought I wanted to be a graphic designer, and I realized that, my goodness, I don't want to sit in a cubicle designing logos and things. I realized that it wasn't for me, but I get it. That's a great profession for people that would be passionate about that. But I found out that it wasn't for me later on. So, I felt like I was failing, like, oh my goodness, this is what I went to school for. This is what I need to do. And so I almost felt like I was failing. So I think that the best advice that someone could have given me back then was the same advice that I'm sharing with you now. Just be flexible, be comfortable experimenting with certain things in different industries and looking at—
willing to learn.
Absolutely. I love that. Willing to learn. That's dead on with the point that I'm trying to make now. And that part of that willing to learn is just exploring, talking with different people, going into different informational interviews. I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I know that would have been the best advice someone could have given me. So that's the best advice that I'm giving you.
Thank you so much for that advice. It's been wonderful, and thank you for sharing your story. It's been amazing. So Lamark, tell us, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to find you, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So I'll give you my Daemen contact, if that's okay. Email address is lshaw, 2 at daemen.edu, or you can call me here at 716-839-8334. Either way, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Lamark Shaw, it's right there. That's actually a really good way of contacting me. Quite a few people do contact me through LinkedIn. So.
Okay, Lamark, it's been wonderful to having you on our podcast. Really happy to see you again after a few years. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Excellent. Hey, if I could just say, Hilario, it's been great interviewing with you, and I really appreciate all of your thoughtful questions, and you've done a fantastic job. And I'm so proud of you. Stay focused.
Thank you so much.
All righty.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Pain Points podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to follow us so you never miss out on future episodes.